My mistress was ill for weeks. The snow blocked off Khanduras. The swamp nearly froze. She was languid and weak. She wailed for me if I left the room and clung to me at night. She stroked that ruby ring like a kitten. Often she asked if the Comtessa had returned, with the trusting eyes of someone who expected that the time would not be if, but when, and was hysterical when I told her that the Comtessa was surely not to return our way, and if she did, would not have the doors of the big house open to her. For many of the missing servants and the young crofters folk had never come back. They found one bloated corpse of a young man when the snow started to thaw, with his neck broken open and an expression of horror in his face. I kept these tales from my mistress, who was growing paler and more listless by the day, who kept crying out, "Comtessa, Comtessa," even when it was my arm holding her, a feeble shadow of the headstrong creature she had been before. I nursed her and called her my foxglove, my lily, my daisy, every sweet name, but she would burst out in wild sobs. A daisy, a lily, ah! When she called me her white rose, with ruby drops of blood upon it. I hate this stupid peasant place. She was so ill that the sickness took the warmth from her hair and leached it from her skin. Her pale, flaxen hair became the color of snow, and her skin like ice. She learned priests could not name her condition. Only her eyes kept their color, those velvety brown eyes I so admired. I grew afraid that she would see the ruin of her beauty and go mad from it, but in the cold depths of spring she rose and stared at herself in the mirror. She had a thin, hungry look to her, and her skin now seemed almost translucent. All she said of her changed face was simply, "I become myself," and admired her own reflection more than ever. That was the hideous winter. Now I will write of the sins of the spring, and the hideous summer that burns upon us even now. I do not know how I will write, but I must. In the end, someone will find out truly what she is, and my only hope for forgiveness is that I will assist that end, in some future that I will never see. It was a changed woman who got up from that bed. My lady had said nothing of the Comtessa for weeks. I saw naught of that hideous ruby ring. I trembled in relief that she had forgotten that wretched ghoul and was now a sadder but wiser woman. I served her the choicest sweetmeats I could find. She toyed with all her old favorite foods now and could not be tempted by the most elegantly cooked chicken breast or the most delicate soup. And I did anything I could to entertain her. Read books I thought would interest her, passed on gossip from the village. Nothing satisfied her. I often felt the fury of her dissatisfaction. I could no longer argue with her, for I feared the damage of a harsh word could do, and indeed I preferred her annoyance to her languishing. One day she stood looking out her tower window, at the chilly rain blackening all her lands, and she said, "She has forgotten me. She has forgotten her bloodied little rose." I would have gladly strangled the Comtessa in that moment, but my mistress became thoughtful, not deranged. I wish now that she had become deranged. I wish I had not slavered after her patronizing smiles. She slipped away from me often. She had somehow grown able to step silently from room to room, with a tread no louder than a cat's, and I would find her suddenly in front of the mirror, smiling at her reflection, or sitting in a chair, staring at nothing, or worse, gone entirely. Sleep fled from me. I began to sicken from a dread I could not name. The fault was mine. I was the first to tell anyone who asked that she was better, much better, and indeed she began to laugh again, but her laughter was much more dreadful than before. Her streak of indolent cruelty increased tenfold. Where once she would have slapped an erring maid, she now clawed the face of the poor wretch, leaving marks that never quite healed. Instead of boxing the ears of the hearth boy, I saw her calmly push him down the stairs. I write in full honesty that I did chastise her, and meant to chastise her bitterly. Yet, it was pitiful chastisement, and I could not continue when her gaze rested upon me. The old horror came rushing up. I was terrified for her. I was terrified of her. She took to taking hour-long baths. The slip of a girl they brought in to carry water from the well and boil it in the cauldron was kept busy every day. For my mistress complained of premature wrinkles, of age. I mixed up herbal remedies of every kind, but nothing suited. Then came the day when I found her in the bath, together with the girl who carried the water. The girl was stripped to the waist, and her naked arm was extended in my mistress's grasp. The arm was slit from wrist to elbow, and her blood flowed freely over my mistress's face, her neck, the very water of the bath. The girl must have been bleeding freely for whole minutes. When my mistress saw my face, her own admitted no guilt, nor even shock. Her cheeks were scarlet and gleaming with blood. "It's a secret remedy, Nan," she said. "It works, truly." The girl was too dazed to cry out. I bandaged the slit arm, and I took her from the tower room with my mistress's mocking laughter echoing behind me. I took the girl back home to the village, and told her mother that she did not suit and was not to come back. When I returned to my mistress, she was happy and radiant and pretty again, and she kissed me and called me "Sweet Nan." I confessed that even then, not only did I not confront her with what she had done, but part of me rejoiced to see her looking so like her old self. There is no excuse. I was half fear and half joy. The next time I found her in the bath with the cook's girl who scrubbed the buttery, the girl's wrist slit. My mistress masked in blood again. I bound this victim up the same as before and sent her packing to her mother with the same warning. I offered up my own arms. My lady slapped them away impatiently. And over, I found her with these dazed, wretched creatures, hypnotized I knew not how into standing like cattle with her vital blood pouring over my mistress's snow-white skin and hair. Not an hour later I would be there as she glowed with contentment and beauty, pinning back the sleeves of her gowns, smiling as though she were terribly pleased with herself. How many girls who suffered this way to start with, I cannot say. They are far away from their sufferings now in any case. There had been fewer than 10 by the time she killed the first one. Yes, I knew she would kill one eventually. Not from desire, but from carelessness. And I don't believe her first murder was intentional. She had already bathed that morning. I had bandaged up her victim and put her to bed, so I did not expect her to bathe again. And this time, my mistress did not bother with the water. When I walked in on my lady at last, it was too late for her victim. Both the girl's arms were slit to ribbons, and she lay slack against the tub, draining into it like a slaughtered cow. My mistress was scooping up great handfuls of blood and patting her arms and her neck with it. As I stood there, all she said was, "Oh, Nan, do take this rubbish out once I'm done with it." What did I do then? I removed her rubbish. I wrapped the dead girl in sacking like she was laundry and deposited her into the cold cellar. That night, it was my strong arms who put her in the reeking midden and buried her deeply among all the old bones and kitchen trimmings. If you dug up the midden right now, you would find a rotten corpse. Though, who would go to the midden so close to the tower, I have no idea. Afterward, I lay in my mistress's bed and begged her, weeping, to never practice such evil again. I pleaded with her to tell me who had taught her such wicked tricks. In my misery, I railed against the Comtesse. My mistress petted me carelessly, then said, not having listened to me at all, "Comtesse, yes, that was her difficulty. Comtesse of where, exactly? Noble blood, but a homeless wanderer, travel-stained. My blood is the heart's blood of Khanduras. She must have envied me, my noble blood and ancient seat. Oh, how I doubt that. I have more right than her to, Comtessa. No, Countess. I am the flower of my lands, with its royalty in my veins. She knew that much. This for the Comtessa, says another countess. And I was watched. She groped beneath her pillow and drew out that glowing carbuncle of a ruby ring. She flung it across the room with such violence that the ruby actually cracked against the stone wall. From then on, I was not to simply call her my lady or mistress, but to humor her by calling her Countess the Rose of Khanduras. Yes, I knew for months that she was mad, or it was something deeper than madness, more monstrous than simply love sickness gone too far. I dare not name what the Comtessa was truly. I do not even think it matters. What mattered was that she, and she only, turned my mistress to a monster who meant to rule all that lay before her. Greedy, foolish, ignorant child that my mistress still was. She murdered again before spring turned into summer, and this time with intent. My mistress had formed a fatal obsession with bathing in blood, for which I had no doubt but that the Comtessa was the source, and a fixation that only pretty girls should serve her purposes. I confessed that she killed Elise, the charcoal burner's girl, and Millie, the dairyman's daughter. I know she killed the sister of the cooper, but I never knew her name, and I don't want to know now. She killed Marie, the shepherdess, and Sarah, who came raging after Marie, and plenty more besides. It sickens me to write them down. Crofter girl after crofter girl, anyone with a fair enough face came under her knife. Girls who I recognized and had grown up with, or girls I had known in their girlhood, and many of them coming fearlessly, for I was the one who was trusted. They should have known better. The Countess killed them all, and never knew any opposition until she killed a scullery maid, and that in some desperation, for the girl was a child and a fairly plain face for all that. She slit the girl's neck and drained her into the bathtub, then sat, lazing in the blood before being surprised by that fatal child, the hearth boy. The hearth boy, who I suspect had been lusting for vengeance for years, sprang at my mistress with a knife from his belt. How do I know this? I was there. I struggled with the boy while my mistress plucked his knife from her ribs, and in all annoyance she snapped his neck with a blow. I saw the knife, and it went deep inside her, but the blood that came out was not like normal blood. It hung out of her chest like long, brightly colored ribbons, trailing with her as she moved. I had not understood what she had become, and nor had I understood her inhuman strength. The blacksmith could not have shattered the boy's neck in that way, with his big fist like hams, and yet my mistress did it as though swatting a fly. Then she demanded petulantly that I slit the boy's neck too and empty him into the bath, so that he would not go wasted. But she was dissatisfied with the result, and afterward declared that, while the blood of crofter girls might be barely adequate, the blood of hearth boys disgusted her. I hid both bodies in the cellar. They are still there at the time I write this. You may ask, why did you do it? I answer, because she was my mistress and I obeyed. Perhaps I thought that if I proved my devotion to her, she would listen to me and stop at the last. That after an initial spurt of violence, we might work something out, something less grotesque, less dangerous, less so easily discovered. I, who had once pinned her by the wrist and called her a fool to her face, I was, and am, utterly degraded. Nor was I clever enough, who had been proud of my sense and cleverness once, for there were uneasy whispers in the keep about what was going on, and the servants refused to wait on my lady, my countess, entirely. The rest of the story is known around the village now, and I imagine will be told to scare children for years to come. But as I've started, I might as well finish. The priest rose up in a body. They must have known everything. Self-serving monsters that they were themselves. And told the family that she ought to be sent away. That she should be shut in some convent or cloister, and have her life forcibly devoted to prayer, and another heir found in some other quarter. They did not accuse her of murder. That would have been beneath them. They were all as haughty as my lady, after all. They dragged my mistress before them and, without making any honest accusation, told her that she would be packed off as soon as travel could be arranged and that letters had already been written to that effect. My lady did not rant or rave. In fact, she seemed to take all this in good calm. I told her that she and I would run away, and she took that in good calm too. Gods help me, I truly intended for us to leave. I thought I would spare the last of the village. So denuded of the girls I had grown up beside. I thought that if we took enough jewels and rich gowns, we might make it to a city and sell our goods, and that she could remove herself from the sight of the peasants she so hated. That was how I thought I persuaded her. I thought that she agreed with me, but I should have understood the familiarity of the smile on her face. It was the same smile the Comtessa had worn when my lady begged her to stay out the winter in the big house. What the village now barely believes is all true. The next morning, the greater number of the priests were dead, and the family too. Necks broken, throats open, the noble blood splashed uselessly over the floors and hangings. The servants and a few chaplains fled screaming from the big house, and many of them are mad with terror still from what they saw, and cannot talk since. I'm sorry that there are any clergy left alive, but not sorry that they cannot do anything but gibber, for it serves my purposes. In any case, not a soul was left in that tower except myself and my countess, examining her reflection in front of the mirror, squeezing clots of blood from her long white hair. "Are you there, Nan?" she said, laughing. "I've been waiting an age. You need to wash my hair. How ugly and frightened my maid appears this morning. I should stop being so ugly immediately, if I were you. Understand that you are now the last beautiful girl left alive, my beloved." And that was when I fled. I wished I could say it had been pure terror, but part of it was how unbearable it was that she finally called me beloved. I saw a future, like a witch or soothsayer, and rejected it. My grandfather has spoken in my defense. Even as I write, he has stopped the rest of the crofters from burning me at the stake. I lied and said I knew nothing of the murdered girls, and if I'm believed, or if I'm not, it is no matter. The crofters all know what she has done, and understand that she's no longer human. Many say they doubt she was ever human, but this is foolishness. She was the same as any other silly mortal girl before the Comtessa came to this benighted place. The plan is that they will storm the keep at sunrise, with torches and pitchforks and oil. They have shovels and picks, and a plan to dig a pit within the cellars of the towers itself, in the hope that the walls will encase her foulness within. They will not use violence on her. I have told them some details about the knife, and I am not certain that their pitchforks will reach their mark. But they will bind her hand and foot and throw her into the pit, and cover her up with the big house rock and Khanduras earth that she adores so much as her birthright. I am tired now. I need strength for what is to come. I do not know whether my strength will falter, or if the hideous love that even now threatens to master me will come to the fore. Perhaps the Comtessa will return, out of nowhere, and bear her off after all. You who listen to this will either know the answer to these questions already, or wonder at the fate of the miserable monster who inhabited this tower, and the more miserable monster who served her purposes. The Rose of Khanduras, buried in the stones and mud. If they throw me in there with her, I will thank them for it. May the earth not give back what it has taken. I lay down my pen.